Welcome to the deep dive. Just a quick and transparent note before we get started. This deep dive was made with some AI assistance, but it was rigorously reviewed by a human expert to make sure all the strategic info we're sharing today is top-notch. Okay, let's jump in. If you're leading a startup or, heading up a major division and you rely on international remote talent, you really need to listen to this. The hidden cost of your global team is likely, and I mean likely, 40% higher than it needs to be.
And that's capital that is just, well, evaporating into administrative overhead every single year.
Exactly. Remote hiring isn't an experiment anymore, right? It's just the default for growth. But scaling efficiently, that takes strategy. So our mission today is to cut through the noise. We're going to compare two major models for building those global teams: Staff Augmentation SA and the more modern solution, Employer of Record, or EOR.
Yeah, and we're going to show you exactly why understanding this one difference could be the biggest lever you can pull to really maximize your efficiency.
And it feels like the market is finally maturing, right?
It absolutely is. The whole global hiring market is catching up to the reality of remote work. As distributed teams become the norm, the question has shifted from, can someone solve this compliance nightmare for me, to, can someone solve it efficiently and transparently?
And for C-level execs, that's not just about cost cutting.
No, not at all. It's an innovation discussion. It's about finding that avoidable overhead and then redirecting that cash flow straight back into growth.
Okay, so let's start with the one most people know, that's traditional go-to, staff augmentation.
Yeah.
For many, it's the default just because it seems convenient. So break down that core model for us.
Staff augmentation is the classic middleman model. You need a specialized skill set. Let's say you need a high-end data scientist in Argentina or a product manager in Vietnam.
But you have absolutely zero desire to register a legal entity there, deal with foreign tax codes, all that stuff.
Exactly. You don't want the headache. So you engage a staffing agency. That agency finds the talent, they put them under their own contract, and then they essentially, they lease that skilled worker back to you.
So you get the person, you direct their work, but you're paying the agency.
Right. You pay the agency a hefty fee, and the agency then pays the worker. It's simple, it's fast, and from a legal perspective, it's completely hands-off for you.
But, as we all know, the simpler the service looks on the outside, the more the costs are usually hidden on the inside.
Yeah.
So this as handling all of this, where's the real financial drain coming from?
It's the markup, and it is completely opaque. An SA firm has this massive, expensive operational structure to maintain. You're talking sales teams, marketing, account managers, and, big profit targets. They bundle all of those costs, plus their recruiting services, and they just load it right onto the employee's actual salary. And that results in markups that are, routinely in the 30 to 50% range.
Wow. Okay, so let's make that real for a second. Imagine a brilliant mid-level engineer in Eastern Europe. Their fair market salary is, say, $70,000 a year. What is the hiring company actually paying?
You're easily looking at paying that SA firm somewhere between $95,000 and $105,000 for that same person.
So that difference, that $25,000, $35,000, it's just administrative friction.
It's pure administrative friction and agency profit. It's a cost that's totally disconnected from the value that engineers delivering. And it's the definition of a black box expense. You know your budget's taking a hit, but you can't see how much is going to the talent versus the middleman.
That sounds completely unsustainable for any company focused on growth. It almost incentivizes you to stay small just to manage the overhead.
It does.
So this brings us to the alternative that's really shaking things up.
Yeah.
The Employer of Record, or EOR model. How does EOR fundamentally restructure that whole relationship?
The EOR model is really an unbundling of services. It recognizes that, in today's world, you probably don't need help finding the talent. You've got LinkedIn, you've got global job boards. What you need help with is the compliance.
Right. The tricky part.
The really tricky part. So in the EOR model, the provider steps in as the legal employer. They take on the liability in that specific country. They manage all the compliance, the local benefits, the tax payments, the payroll. They are your infrastructure, not a staffing layer.
Okay, so what's the key operational difference then? Because in both models, some outside company is managing the legal status.
Right.
For a CEO, why is this more than just, a small price change?
It matters because of control and liability. In an EOR model, you, the listener, you hire the actual person. You find them, you interview them, you bring them onto your team, and you manage their work day to day. The EOR doesn't manage the person.
They just manage the paperwork and the risk.
Exactly. And that's critical because it directly addresses the number one legal fear of scaling globally: permanent establishment risk and misclassification. Since the EOR is the legal employer of record, they take on that liability. They legally insulate your company from a huge amount of cross-border compliance risk.
So it's not just cutting cost, it's actively transferring legal liability away from your business. And I guess that structural difference is what completely changes the cost structure, right?
Precisely. Unlike SA firms, which mark up the entire salary by 40%, EOR companies charge a transparent service fee.
Okay.
And this fee is just for that liability transfer and administrative work. It's usually a flat monthly rate per employee or a very small percentage. So the talent gets paid their full market value, and you avoid those huge markups that just feed the middleman.
This is where we need to move from theory to, the spreadsheet. Let's look at the actual numbers, because this is the kind of insight that should be driving a strategic pivot for a lot of companies.
Let's do it. Let's use a really common scenario for a scaling tech company. You're hiring 3 mid-level engineers in a great talent hub, maybe somewhere like Lisbon. The fair market salary for each is $50,000 a year. So that's $150,000 total in actual compensation.
Okay, 150.
Now, if you go the staff augmentation route, we apply that common 40% markup. And honestly, that's often a conservative estimate.
So 40% of 150,000. Wait, that's an extra $60,000 just gone.
Correct. So the total cost to your company for those 3 key employees using SA skyrockets to $210,000 a year. That $60,000 is purely a friction cost.
Wow. Okay. Now, let's run the same scenario using an EOR platform, something like Thrive or CP. We start with the same $150,000 for the talent.
Right. Now we add the transparent EOR fee. Our data shows that good, comprehensive EOR services usually charge between, say, $200 and $400 per employee per month. Let's just use $300 as a good middle estimate.
Okay, so $300 a month times 12 months times 3 employees. That's $10,800 for the year.
That brings the total annual service fee to only $10,800.
So the total cost to the company through the EOR model is what, about $160,800?
Approximately, yes.
The difference is, it's just staggering. For 3 mid-level engineers, you're saving nearly $50,000 a year. That's not a rounding error. That's a serious recovery of capital.
And it scales exponentially. Imagine that across a team of 30 people, you're suddenly freeing up $500,000 annually.
Yeah. So that raises a really important question. If the EOR model is so much more cost-effective and it transfers the risk better, why hasn't the entire market just flipped overnight?
Yeah.
Why does staff augmentation still seem to dominate in some areas?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? It can't just be inertia.
Right. There have to be real reasons that C-levels are still signing those huge SA contracts.
There are a few key drivers. First, it's what we mentioned before: market maturity and inertia. SA has been around for decades. Those firms have enormous marketing budgets. A lot of leaders just don't know the EOR alternative exists, or maybe they're a bit suspicious because the cost difference seems, too good to be true.
Yeah.
Second, SA provides a service that EOR typically doesn't, which is the full-on recruitment and vetting. Some companies prioritize speed above all else. If you need 10 specialized coders ready to go in 2 weeks and you don't have the internal HR capacity, SA is still the fastest way to do that.
So you're trading high cost for extreme speed. It's like paying for next-day air freight when ground shipping would have worked just fine.
It's a perfect analogy. And the third reason, sadly, is this idea of perceived quality. The belief that because something costs 40% more, the talent must be better.
Even though the talent pool is often identical.
Often identical. The difference is just how the relationship is managed and how the pricing is hidden. EOR offers radical transparency, and that's a huge cultural point.
Let's dig into that transparency factor, because it's not just about the numbers, right? It impacts your company culture and, I imagine, retention.
Absolutely. With an EOR, you know the exact salary the employee gets, and you know the exact fixed fee you're paying. There are no hidden markups.
And that builds trust.
It builds massive trust and loyalty. If a top engineer knows they were hired by your company, that you're committed to their market rate, that the fee is fixed, that's a powerful message. In the SA model, they often feel like a contractor, technically employed by the staffing firm, which introduces friction and makes them easier to poach.
Okay, I have to ask a critical question here from an executive's perspective. If the EOR fee is just a flat rate, what stops them from, cutting corners on compliance or benefits to save themselves money?
That is an excellent and necessary question. The integrity of the EOR provider is everything. A reputable EOR, especially one focused on global compliance like Thriver CP, is heavily incentivized to maintain 100% compliance.
Because they're the ones on the hook, legally.
They've taken on the liability. If they cut corners on local employment law, they face the massive legal and financial penalties, not your company. Their entire business model relies on being bulletproof on compliance. You're paying for that peace of mind.
So we've basically established that SA is the right tool for, say, a 2-month project where budget is no object, but for building strategic, long-term, remote teams.
The efficiency and risk mitigation of the EOR model are just undeniable. It really shows the maturation of the market, where you've unbundled compliance from recruitment and just slash the friction cost.
Okay, so let's make this really actionable for the leaders listening. What are the key takeaways for a business leader who's currently relying on a bunch of SA contracts?
First thing you need to do is an immediate contract audit. For every employee you have on a long-term role through staff augmentation, calculate the actual markup you're paying above their salary. Don't just look at the invoice, find out the talent's real salary.
And once you have that markup percentage,
Compare it directly to the nominal flat monthly fee of an EOR platform. The numbers will speak for themselves.
and when you do that comparison, you have to factor in the intangibles too. The value of having direct control over the relationship, and critically, the value of that liability transfer. I mean, what's it worth to your balance sheet to know you're shielded from permanent establishment risk?
That risk mitigation alone can often justify the shift, even before you see the direct cost savings. And we have to bring it back to the talent for a second. If you're struggling with retention, understand that opaque contracts erode trust. Workers know they're being paid less than what you're spending.
Switching to EOR becomes a retention tool.
It's a powerful signal. It says, we trust you, we value you at your market rate, and we want a direct, long-term relationship. And if we just connect this to the bigger picture, to the opportunity cost, think about that $50,000 in annual savings we found for just 3 employees. That is capital you can put to work immediately. So my final question for you, the business leader, is this. How many additional high-quality team members could you hire? Or what critical strategic project could you fund right now if you recaptured the hundreds of thousands of dollars being drained by these unnecessary middleman fees?
That's the real cost, isn't it? The hidden frictional cost of the traditional staffing model is a drag on innovation and growth. Making informed, efficient, and transparent decisions about how you scale internationally is just paramount to your financial success. Thank you for diving deep into all this with us today. If you're ready to audit your current contracts and explore how the EOR model can really maximize your global hiring efficiency and mitigate risk, we absolutely encourage you to visit thrivercp.com. That's thrivercpal.com, or you can follow them on social media for more insights into transparent international scaling. Until next time, keep learning and keep scaling smart.